Good morning, everybody. I'm Mandy Birds with Petra Coach. Thanks for joining us today. About once a month, we put on either a workshop or a webinar. Learning and continued growth for our members is incredibly important. So we put these on so that you guys can come and join and learn a little bit more and have some information to take back to your organization to grow it. So today we are joined by Amith Nagarajan. Amith is the chairman of Blue Cypress. They're a family of purpose-driven companies and proud practitioners of conscious capitalism. The Blue Cypress family member companies focus on helping associations, nonprofits, and other purpose-driven organizations achieve long-term success. Amith is a very busy entrepreneur, and he's an early-stage investor in B2B SaaS companies as well. He's been an entrepreneur for nearly 3 decades. We've worked together for about 10 years or so. He's passionate about helping others on their journey. Today, Amith is going to talk to us about AI and how it's applied in business and how it can help you guys leverage this in your own organization. As a reminder, today's going to be interactive. Amith is going to run the webinar, but we're going to hear from you. So at the bottom of your tool screen, you're going to see a Q&A button and a chat button. Encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar. We'll get those. We'll do a little Q&A at the end. So submit your questions. We'll grab those. And at the end, we'll run through all of them. Without further ado, Amith, I'm passing it off to you. Take us away.
All right, Mandy, thanks so much for that kind intro. And hello, everybody. As Mandy said, I'm one of you. I'm a long-term serial entrepreneur, sometimes a parallel entrepreneur. I've started a lot of different kinds of companies, primarily software companies over the last 30 years. And in the last 10 years, I've done a lot of work in the artificial intelligence space. It's always been a category that's amazed me and excited me. And in the last 10 years, the advancements that have occurred are truly mind-blowing. For most of you, I would imagine that artificial intelligence really wasn't part of your thinking or your conversations probably until this year, because ChatGPT and other tools that were kind of accessible to pretty much everybody kind of burst onto the scene, and they were an overnight success, right? And so they were an overnight success, literally 70, 80 years in the making, but particularly 10 years in the making. And I'm going to talk to you today about AI, but I'm going to talk to you about how to make money with AI. And so as a fellow entrepreneur, I deeply care about your success, and I care about the Petra organization. I was one of Andy and Mandy's first clients with my former software company. They helped me a ton with growth, and I'm hoping that I can share a little bit of what I know with all of you today, and hopefully it'll help you in your journeys. So let's jump in. As Mandy said, please jump in with questions through the panel, and she'll ask those questions to me as we go. So artificial intelligence, the first thing I want to try to do is demystify it a bit, because it's a lot of different things. There's all these buzzwords about prediction, about machine learning, about deep learning, about neural nets, about pattern recognition, predictions, and so forth. Yes, there's a lot to it. But what is it ultimately? Is it generative AI, where you can create, AI generated images like this? This was created by a tool called DALL-E, which is DALL-E, and that's one of the AI models that's gotten some press, mostly last year, where you can put in a text prompt and it'll create an image for you based on the description that you provide. So I can say, give me a photo, or I guess this is more of a cartoonish rendering of the Earth being taken over by robots, right? And it'll generate images for you. And you can, of course, get a lot more sophisticated than this. There's a little bit of a demo coming up on that. But is that what AI is? It's I think this is a pretty good definition, and it's a bit of a moving target. So Demis Hassabis, who is the co-founder of DeepMind. DeepMind was acquired by Google about a little bit over a decade ago, I think. He's one of the most brilliant minds in the AI space, and he likes to describe it as the science of making machines smart. I like that description because it effectively means this. If you think a computer probably can't do something, that's the next AI use case. So I'll give you an example. Just a few years ago, we were having a hard time speaking to our computers. Now, it's pretty normal. You talk to Siri all the time, Alexa all the time, and those tools are pretty rudimentary. What you're about to experience is real-time language translation, real-time abilities to interact with AI models through voice, and hearing them speak back to you. That's really on the horizon in the imminent future. But that would have felt like sci-fi certainly 10 years ago, and probably would have felt sci-fi to you even a few years ago. That's the idea of quote unquote smart. But in a few years, that will seem like, well, of course our computers do that. What else can they do, right? And so it'll be the next thing and the next thing. So that's one definition. But here's another way of thinking about what is AI. AI is unbelievable growth in GDP and unbelievable growth in opportunity and productivity. So I'm sure many of you on this call are familiar with a term called Moore's Law. And for those of you that have not been keeping up with, the computing industry, Moore's Law essentially is this idea. One of the founders of Intel Corp almost 60 years ago said, every 18 months, we're going to have a doubling of basically this idea of performance for money. So he predicted that the density of transistors on a chip would double every 18 months. And what that means is that the power of the chip doubles every 18 months for the same amount of money. And so what that means is that if you double and double and double again, you're on an exponential curve. And that means that things get really cheap really fast, and computing is effectively almost free. There's always better computing, but the point is that as computing becomes radically less expensive, all sorts of things become possible. Like the iPhone in your pocket, that's literally as computationally capable as a supercomputer from 20 years ago for $1,000 or less, right? So what does this mean in terms of GDP growth? So this chart is one that I love because it shows you the multiplier over a period of time. So if you look down here, in the 1800s, we had 4x, 20x's between 1900 and today, and we're on that curve, we're building, and this is a logarithmic curve. So if it was actually a linear curve, it would look pretty much like a straight line. So this information revolution is what preceded us. That's the time of Moore's Law. Now we're in the AI curve. Why does this matter to you as mostly non-technical folks? Because it matters because your business is about to be reinvented, either by you or someone who's going to replace you. Every single business in the world, whether you are in technology or you hate technology, you're going to be impacted by AI. So the question is, how can we take advantage of that to advance your purpose and advance your profits? This is what's happening in the world around you, whether you like it or not. It's exciting. It's also a little bit scary. A little bit about me and some resources I'll talk about more later. I recently wrote a book about all this stuff. My focus, as Mandy mentioned, is helping the not-for-profit sector. So my book is nominally focused on this idea of the association and membership market, but there might be some content in there that you find useful. It's available on this website. At the end of the presentation, there'll be a QR code. Now let's talk about some use cases. I want to dive right in and get practical because as a fellow ADHD entrepreneur, I don't have time to pay attention to a lot of hypotheticals and theory. I want to know how the hell to go use this stuff and make money with it and make my business better. So marketing, this is the first place I always start with folks because it's immediate in terms of the value creation. First thing is, nobody likes being screamed at. If you are still doing marketing in a way, which is get the biggest megaphone you can possibly find the closest customer and blast out their eardrums, you're probably not going to keep winning that way. You have to think about personalization. Now, that has been a theoretical nice thing, but a practical difficulty, unless you had a lot of people, and even so, probably you couldn't do it too well. AI completely solves this. You can do deeply personal content for everyone. You can also personalize the content delivery timing and method. So perhaps you send me a text because I hate email, and perhaps Andy Bailey, because we know he loves email, send Andy lots of emails. Text summarization. That's an example of something that will save you gobs of time. How many of you like reading really long emails and documents? I don't think a lot of you would have raised your hand if I could see you right now. One of the great challenges of artificial intelligence that we were talking about actively in the industry 5 years ago is when will AI produce better text summaries than people? And we thought it was 20 years away 5 years ago. That was kind of the collective belief of the industry, because even if you're in this industry, the exponential curve is really hard to reckon with. It's here now. It's been with us for about a year. Text summaries produced by AI are considered to be as good or better by lots and lots and lots of independent measures. And that's not even on the best AI models. Why is that important? A good summary will save you a lot of time. Let's say you miss a meeting. You go to the meeting and you spend an hour, but what if you could just get the notes and those notes were really good? Summaries can save you a lot of time. Similarly, you, like me, probably have a lot of information to share with your people, with your clients, with your community. You can summarize yourself in order to add brevity to your messages, because the shorter your messages are, the more likely people are to read them. So you can use tools like ChatGPT, and I do this all the time. Take my long-winded email to my team, right? I say this, I don't know, 500-word email, because I think all those words are important. I drop it into ChatGPT and I say, this is an email to my team. Please abbreviate this down to 150 words. And I read the result. I'm like, wow, that's really good. That's as good as a really, really good executive assistant could do. Tone adjustment. Once again, that's something that we can't really tell when we're communicating either with one-to-one or with large groups. Email doesn't carry tone very well. Tone adjustment is something AI is brilliant at. Now, you can also do whole cloth copywriting and image and video generation. We're going to talk about that. So in marketing, you spend a lot of time thinking about how to communicate, what to communicate. The AI tools can help you dramatically. So not only will you save a lot of time, say you have a team of 3 people doing marketing for you right now, they will all save time. And so you could say as the entrepreneur, do I really need 3 people? Maybe I can get away with 2 or even 1. And the shorter answer is, yeah, you could do that. The alternative is you could do a much, much better job and use your marketing team as a competitive advantage in the market while the rest of your industry probably isn't doing this stuff. And you can deliver deeply personalized messaging, deeply relevant content to each of the people that you're speaking with, and on and on. So that's the basic idea in marketing, is it's competitive advantage all over. Well, let's talk about some examples here. What's playing in the background is a little clip of a chatbot that actually is one of the companies we have in our family. And the idea is, if you've used ChatGPT yourself, what if we could create a ChatGPT-like agent for your company? So let's say you're a company that's a home builder and you have a complex sales cycle because your clients who come to you are filled with all sorts of questions and they have deep conversations with you about this process, very emotional in nature. There's a lot of details. And you have your very, very smartest project managers and salespeople that talk to these folks. Well, what if you could train a bot to be literally as good as those folks in terms of their knowledge and being able to interact with some of these folks, perhaps on the very front end of the sales process? And it's not a generic bot like you'd find on ChatGPT. It uses some of the same technology, but it knows your brand. It knows your brand style. Are you whimsical or are you serious? It knows your brand's content deeply. So this bot has read every single article you've ever read. It's read all of your internal playbooks. Perhaps it's even read like lots of project management documentation. It knows your business. And so it can represent you very, very well. This is not science fiction. This is available today. There's lots of ways of doing it. This particular demo is one that we use called BettyBot.ai, which is, again, targeted to the market we're in. It can be used by anybody, but the point is there's lots of ways of setting up a really good bot. In the past, when you've talked about chatbots, and many of you might have them on your website, they're there to serve you. Do they really help your customer in their journey? You could kind of argue it, but really up until now, chatbots are kind of a pain in the ass. I hate them. I do not like dealing with those things because it's basically like the equivalent of a phone tree. Going back 10, 20 years, you call up a business and you go, you get this menu. Oh, for customer service, press 1. For sales, press 2. To wait on hold forever, press 3. You don't really get good customer service feelings from that. You just want to talk to a person. You want to get answers. You don't want this dense phone tree. And that's what chatbots have been online. They basically are the website version of that. That's different. It's called chat and chat, but it's totally different. Now, these chatbots are really capable of having true natural language conversations in a meaningful way with your customers. So explore this. This is customer service. It's also brilliant for sales because it makes you available all the time when your customers want to talk to you. So let's talk about that a little bit. Now, here's another example for marketing that could be brilliant. Stock images basically are terrible. They look the same for everyone. There's a number of image generation tools that I want to make you aware of. One of them is called Midjourney. This is an example of one of our team members going into Midjourney and saying, hey, I want a tech-style cartoon, a crowd of people attending a virtual conference session on artificial intelligence. And so this user asked Midjourney, which is an AI, it's a generative AI bot, and it created several images in that style, tech-style cartoon. You can tell it basically anything you want. Imagine you're speaking to a graphic artist and you're saying, hey, graphic artist, for my company, this is our style, this is the color palette, this is the motif. I'd like an image for our next marketing piece. Now, is this perfect? Probably not. But think about it this way. Imagine that you were working with a real life human artist and you were asking for a piece of imagery for a marketing campaign. You would probably do the same thing. You'd give them, you communicate with them and say, this is what I'm looking for. And they'd give you several options. And you'd say, well, I like option 3. I don't like options 1, 2, and 4. Give me 3 or 4 samples based on this. And that's exactly what Midjourney does. There are other tools like Midjourney. There's a product from OpenAI called DALL-E. That's on openai.com. This one is called Midjourney. They're different. There's some free versions and there's some paid versions. This is the paid $10 a month version. Now, the other thing is, a lot of people ask me, does this mean people get completely replaced by AI? And the short answer is really probably not. Why? Because would you just take this image and drop it on your website? Even if whether you like it or don't like it, the point is it's a draft. Just like copy created by AI, think of it as copy created by a really smart 22-year-old college graduate that just entered the workforce and wrote their first blog for you. They might be brilliant. Maybe they went to Harvard and they have a degree in English and they're a wonderful writer and they have this amazing knowledge of literature, but they don't know your company that well. They don't know you that well. And so the AI is kind of at that level. They're like an entry-level employee. Would you take an entry-level employee's work and just post it on your website? I don't think so. You'd probably have someone a little more senior review it. That is where AI is today. So a lot of people are saying, well, oh, I look at this image. This is kind of like toy-like. It's not perfect. But so is the work from a lot of earlier career employees. You don't throw them out. If you could get a free 22-year-old college graduate to produce work for you all day, or basically free, like $10 a month, would you do that? Or would you say, no, that's not good enough because they're 80% good enough or 90% good enough? That's how you have to think of AI. It's not humans or AI. It's humans plus AI. Let's put it another way. Right now, you're using tools for your business, whatever those tools are. Those tools are like hand tools. They're like hammers. They're like saws. They're like screwdrivers. AI isn't just like a power tool. It's like going from, banging rocks, in caves to having a bulldozer. So it's a very different order of magnitude in terms of power. So that's the idea. Those are a couple of simple examples. Now, I want to kind of blast through a lot of this because I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions at the end. So I want to kind of shift gears and talk a little bit about your data. So what I've covered so far, very high level, and many of you have probably heard of these use cases of use ChatGPT for marketing, for email communications, use bots for creating images. Cool. The framing I want you to think about it as an entrepreneur, again, though, is don't shoot for perfection, shoot for first drafts. Down the road, maybe AI gets better so that you can go all the way to like a final draft. And maybe in some future world, you go all the way from AI to publishing without even looking at it. I personally don't think that's a great idea for the foreseeable future, even as these models get better and better, because I think there's value in human judgment. I think there's also kind of a little bit of a safety net if the models aren't perfect. You don't need them to be perfect. I don't want a robot to operate on me in a surgical environment without some human oversight, even though the data says the robot's better at probably most medical procedures these days. I still want the human involved. Similarly, you want the human involved to review the work of the AI. So what I covered so far are tools you can get for free or really cheap. The barrier to entry is you and your people using this stuff. Now, I'll talk more about that in a bit, but that stuff I just covered, there are literally hundreds of consumer-grade AI tools that you can start using now. Experimentation is the key with that, and there's value to be had. It's just sitting there for you to go capture. You will save money, and you will make more money if you learn how to use these tools. But let's shift gears and talk about a bigger opportunity, which is around your data. So the consumer-grade AI tools that I've covered so far are awesome. They're really exciting, but they know nothing really about you as a business. The idea of a chatbot, by the way, that's deployed on your website is a more involved thing. And of course, that chatbot has to know your business. So that example is a little bit beyond consumer grade. But the point is that your data has tremendous value. You have information about your product, decisions and marketing strategies, the ability to personalize communication based upon what we know about your audience. And that goes along with optimizing experiences for people. Of course, there's opportunities for collaboration. Like, I'll give you an example. If you were creating a proposal for a customer or client, how much work is involved in that? How much effort is necessary? What type of personnel is involved in that? Well, what if the AI was aware of literally every proposal you've ever written previously and could write a new proposal simply by you typing a prompt in saying, AI, I need a new proposal for this prospect. This is what they're interested in. These are the products and services I think might be good for them. Create the proposal. And the AI is able to look back at 1,000 proposals you've written over the last 10, 20, 30 years, pick the most relevant recent ones based on your input, and create that proposal literally in seconds for you. And there you have a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word document. That's actually something that is available for some people right now. It will be available for pretty much everyone on both the Google Workspace and the Microsoft 365 platforms by the end of the year at the latest. Some of you may have access to it already. In Google, they call it Duet. It's part of their AI in the workspace, Google Workspace. In the Microsoft realm, it's very much the same idea. It's called Copilot. And that's in the Microsoft 365. Neither of those products are available widely right now. Mostly the very large Fortune 500 companies have access. But essentially, that's what they do is they take the history of every document, every spreadsheet, every presentation you've ever done in your company's history and leverages that to help you. That's an unbelievable level of productivity leap beyond consumer-grade AI. Consumer-grade AI like ChatGPT has no idea about any of that stuff. Microsoft and Google, as those two workforce platforms, they know your history, and that's unbelievable what they can do for you. So pay attention to that. As soon as you have the opportunity, sign up for it. It's really cheap. I think Copilot's like $10 a user or something like that, or maybe it's $30, but it's kind of irrelevant almost how much it costs in terms of the productivity gap you get, which is of course why Microsoft and Google are jumping at it. It's an incredible product opportunity. Now, that's one kind of data, which is what I'd call semi-structured data, which is like spreadsheets, documents, PowerPoints. That's kind of unstructured and semi-structured data like spreadsheets. You also have databases in your business. You probably all have something like a QuickBooks or a NetSuite for your financial data. Maybe you have a CRM like Salesforce or HubSpot or a marketing tool like that. Those tools, everyone in the industry, we're adding AI like crazy to all these tools. Now, everyone says they have AI. It all comes in various flavors. Salesforce has Einstein. HubSpot has stuff coming out. Here's the key message for you guys as entrepreneurs. Know your data in terms of what you have. I'm not saying you need to learn what's in every one of these databases, but create a data catalog. Work with your team to create basically this idea of a data map or a data catalog, which simply lists all of the data sources you have in your business that matter. Of course, your Microsoft or your Google Workspace data is one chunk of it, but your other systems, so your line of business software, like your CRM and your financial system, know those data sets. Why? Because not only do those tools likely have AI capabilities or will soon have AI capabilities you need to be using, you need to talk to your teams about using them if they're not already investigating, but the combination of that data is really interesting. So if you take all of that data and say, okay, now let's pull it together in one place. Now, doing that at the moment takes a bit of IT investment. So those of you that are very small companies or you don't have any IT budget, at the moment, this might be a little bit out of reach, but I still want to describe it because the cost of this stuff is constantly coming down and there's open source solutions coming out for this. But here's the idea of a common data platform. Whoops, sorry. Back up. Common data platform essentially is this concept of pulling all of those data sources, your documents, especially your databases like CRM, financials, et cetera, into one place. Why? Because if the AI has visibility into all of that data, it can do even more. One of the things you can do is you can actually ask questions of your data. So imagine that I worked for you, and let's say that I was free, and I was also an incredibly good data analyst who knew how to get into all of your data and answer any question you have. You might say, who are my best customers over the last 10 years? Okay, that's kind of easy. It's like you can do that in a finance system. But maybe I want to look at not only your financial data, but also your customer data. And maybe you want to ask me a question that goes a little bit deeper. You might say, who are my best prospects based on the customers I most recently closed? Who are the most similar? Maybe that looks across all these data sets. And maybe some judgment like, what should I pitch this customer? I'm writing a proposal. What should I tell them? And maybe that AI then says, okay, we're going to look at the proposals in Microsoft and Google, that history I talked about of all the documents. And we're also going to look at your HubSpot data, and we're going to look at all of their service requests in HubSpot. when they were happy, when they were not happy. We're going to get a sense of that customer's personality. Are they kind of a, millennial Gen Z type person who's like, a little bit less formal? Maybe they're more interested in kind of, chit chat. And I know I'm generalizing these generations, but or are they like, my generation who's a little bit more, perhaps slightly more formal and more just to the point, give me the data. And we're going to tune the personality of the message to that person. And then in addition to that, maybe we know that that particular customer a year ago represented to us that they were interested in a particular product that we have, right? Or something that we do, and we forgot about it, but it's in the data. And so our AI, through the common data platform, can actually be intelligent enough to remember that and tune our proposal and tune our message to that person. That's an unbelievable thing. Companies that take advantage of the full power of their data will be really unstoppable compared to their counterparts who don't do this. So this is a bit of an investment you have to make. And you can ping me offline if you want more resources on how to do this. But the idea is it's not a system. It's not like, oh, replace Salesforce. Don't do that. If you have Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever, keep using those tools if they work for you. The idea is you pull all your data out of Salesforce, out of HubSpot, out of your financial system, and pull them into a unified place you control. So it's not a database provided by some vendor. It's a database you control, and then you have your AI look at that. That's where the power comes from. It also gives you more optionality so that you can change your CRM and your financial system over time. Again, that's a deep topic by itself. Ping me. I'll give you my contact information if you're more interested in learning more about that. I've got a bunch of resources on it. Okay, so moving on. A couple more use cases I want to blast through for the next 10, 12 minutes, and then I want to have 15, 20 minutes at the end for discussion and questions. AI and taxonomies. So many of your businesses have classification problems, let's put it that way, where you need to classify your content, your products, your services, conversations, and you might have come up with like a tagging system or a hierarchy of tags. And that's really hard to maintain in most cases. It's very difficult. And this is where it's something AI can do for you beautifully, even with the current AI that's available right now. So suggesting taxonomy structures, maintaining those taxonomies, and then going back and updating your old content if you change your taxonomy. That's a key thing. And then, of course, automatically tagging new content. So if you have new products or services that you load into your catalog, new content you put on your website, automatically tagging that. Why is that important? It makes it more findable. It makes it more useful for everyone, including AI, but also, of course, people. So this is a big opportunity I wanted to flag for you that a lot of people aren't thinking about. It's totally the unsexy one, right? It's something nobody really likes thinking about, but there's a lot of value here, and there's tons of inefficiencies in your business today because your taxonomy probably sucks, and it's probably out of date, and probably not, people are not maintaining it as much, and you don't have time or dollars to go do it. Look at AI for this. This is a place you can really improve your operational efficiency, and there's a lot of dollar signs attached to that. Another piece is membership, or what I'd call subscription tiers. Again, this particular slide is tiered towards the market I spend a lot of time in, the association world, which is basically people who run membership organizations. And many businesses have gone towards a membership model, including, of course, Petra, and subscription-based models, of course, are common. Here's one of the things AI is interesting for. So remember earlier the chatbot I told you about, I described it in the context of a sales agent, someone to help your prospects in their buying journey. And that's awesome. But what about also something that helps your customers along the way? So imagine you're a professional services firm. Maybe you're an architect, or you're a CPA firm or a law firm. And you say, hey, listen, in addition to our live services, we also have for you, as part of your membership with us, our own bot. So let's just pick on Petra since we're all together through Petra. Let's say there was a Petra bot, and the Petra bot was kind of like Mini Andy. It even talked like him. And Mini Andy basically was knowledgeable as much as Andy on everything. It's read everything Andy's ever written and said. It's read literally everything. And it knows all the stuff. And yeah, that's great for sales perhaps, but what if you had that available to you in your Slack environment, in your Microsoft Teams environment, so that if you guys are talking about stuff, you're constantly talking about your business, you're talking about quarterly planning, you're talking about annual planning, you're talking about priorities, you're like, oh man, is this a smart priority? Did we define that priority well? And you can kind of channel Andy, right? And so there, all of a sudden now you can, in your Microsoft Teams environment, do hashtag PetraBot or hashtag AndyBot and ask a question. And right back into that same channel, Andy bot, Petra bot chimes up and says, this is what we should do, or that opinion, which is probably going to sound like Andy and kind of be the type of thing he would tell you. And that's only available from Petra. And it's only available if you're a member of Petra. There's a lot of value in that. So is that available in tier 1 of membership, tier 2, tier 3? That's a great question. It's certainly a significant member retention strategy because then it becomes part of the workflow of the customer. And so there's tons of businesses like this that are, whether they're coaching organizations or they're professional services firms, or maybe product firms that have a support offering where it's like, hey, listen, you bought our product and we have this great service offering. Yes, we always are here for you live when you need us, but all day, all night, every day of the year, we have our bot that's got all of our knowledge, and that's only available to members. So think about that. It's a way to rethink the value proposition and the value creation for your business to leverage your intellectual property in a new way. And so I get super excited about this. There's actually a whole chapter in my book, which I'll have the link at the end of the presentation. It's a free download, or if you prefer to have the physical book, you can get on Amazon. But even though it's targeting associations, there's a whole chapter in it about this digital assistant and how you can monetize it. And I think this is relevant to way more businesses than they realize it. All right, so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the other side of AI, which is the concerns people have. And they're right. It's right to have concerns about AI. This is, in my opinion, the most compelling and challenging technology we as a collective species have ever been about to unlock. This is bigger than the internet by far. This is bigger than computing. It's bigger than space travel. It's bigger than all these things combined in a way, because essentially brings human knowledge, activates human knowledge on all of our behalfs in a way that we just can't even comprehend yet. So with that comes incredible opportunity, and it also comes some concerns and challenges. Some of the ones that come from an entrepreneur, and it should be coming to you from an entrepreneur and business leader's mindset, is, is there fairness and bias? For example, if I use a bot from a pre-screening perspective for hiring candidates, are the biases of my existing organization going to be represented in the way the bot selects candidates? Short answer is yes, because the bots basically act like us. We train them on our content, so our good things and our bad things come along. So what does that mean? Well, you probably have to have some checkpoints, right? So a solution for that is to say, well, do you let a bot do all of your pre-screening, or do you have some auditing of that from time to time? Is there a privacy and security challenge with AI? The short answer is yes. The longer answer is it's yes, and all technology has privacy and security challenges. The reason it's such a big conversation on AI is because it's kind of it's like what we call a frontier technology. It hasn't been explored yet. And so there's just a lot of Wild West kind of behavior going on. So people thinking, oh, I'm going to take my customer database, I'm going to drop it into ChatGPT in order to get it to do stuff for me. Bad idea. You don't have a relationship with OpenAI that protects your data unless you sign up for their enterprise product, which they just released 2 weeks ago. If you just drop in your content and you're just a free user in ChatGPT, OpenAI can and will use that data for their own benefit. But that's because you're a free user. Actually, even if you go to the $20 a month plan, you can turn that off. But the point is, you got to know about this stuff. So don't blindly use this stuff. It's just like if I told you, hey, there's a new free accounting software tool. It's called amithsaccounting.com, and it's totally free. All you got to do is upload all your financial data. And in the background, I'm taking your financial data and I'm packaging it and selling it to credit card companies or whoever I want. You wouldn't like that. Well, you wouldn't just sign up for amithsaccounting.com and give me all your data without thinking about it. Take the same level of diligence to AI. It's not that different from anything else you do. Don't be more scared of AI than you would be of another tool. Just think about it from a common sense perspective. Transparency is important too, because you want your AI to have what we call explainability. So again, going back to the example of selecting employment candidates, if you do use AI for that, you want the AI you use to be able to tell you, oh, we didn't select Amith for an interview. Amith was declined for an interview. Why? Why not, right? Like if I had a human screener, I could ask that screener, hey, Mandy, why did you kick Amith to the curb? What was wrong with his profile, or what went wrong in the interview? And Mandy could tell you, oh, well, I didn't like the way he answered this question or whatever, right? That's important. If AI is a black box, that's really scary. So the industry, the good news is the industry is moving towards explainability in general. So we can see that there's like an audit trail essentially behind the AI's decision-making. And that kind of goes part and parcel with accountability. The difference between the two is accountability means that when we have an AI make a decision, we probably want to have a human review it, and we want to be able to stand behind that decision because it's part of our organization's fabric. So you kind of have to move fast and slow at the same time. What does that mean? Experiment a lot and experiment quickly, but deploy a little bit more cautiously. Learn the tools first before you say you're going to put them into use. If you're in construction, I say, hey, I've got this amazing new drone that can like pour foundations for you, and you've never experimented with it. Do you just fire your whole crew for doing that kind of work and just use my new drone? Probably not. You're going to experiment with it. You're going to test it out. You're going to make sure that it's really good. And then you're going to maybe slowly roll it out, and then you roll it out faster, right? Once it's proven. You do the same thing with AI. It's not an all or off thing. So you have to think of it that way. The solutions I've already kind of covered, but some of the things that are important, just talk about this stuff. Don't blindly go into AI and don't just shut it off. Like, have a conversation amongst your team. Talk to people who know what they're doing. In a group like Petra, form a subgroup of people who are AI adopters or people who want to adopt AI, and have conversations about this stuff. Guidelines, impact assessments, these are all things you can do as you move along. But the most important thing is the conversation. So this is super important to be thinking about. Now, I'm going to give you a couple slides on change. And this is an area I think your friends at Petra can help you with a ton. Like any technology, if your people don't use the stuff, it's worth zero. In fact, it's worth negative because it takes time to try to implement it and buy it. So most of you on this call are probably like here and here. You're probably in charge of stuff. Maybe not, but I think a lot of you on this call are probably leaders of your businesses, founders, CEOs, etc. And so you have a lot of formal power. And so you can manage change by doing top down. Now, yes, you can do it by edict and say, thou shalt use AI. Cool, but good luck with that. What you really need to do is actually create an environment where people understand that, number one, it is okay, because many people in organizations don't know if their bosses are okay with AI at all. So you make it okay. You set some clear guidelines for what they should do and what they shouldn't do. For example, don't copy and paste our customer database into ChatGPT. It's an example, right? But you establish some guidelines, you have a conversation about it, and then you lead by example. So you as the CEO or CFO or COO, you use the stuff personally. You don't delegate it to someone and you say, oh, that's my tech person, and you kind of like cop out, which is bullshit. You go use the tool yourself. You're capable of figuring it out. These are not technical tools. You use it yourself and you talk about it. You say, hey, this is what I tried it out for. I'm not sure if it worked well for me. Does anybody else try it? You set the stage by leading through example. If you don't show that you're trying to use this stuff yourself, you can't expect your team to. So this is not a technology where you can say, hey, I've gotten my IT guy to implement a new accounting system. This is a different thing. You've got to personally show that this is something that is meaningful and actually, walk behind the talk. So that's one thing. Also provide training. You can spend a little bit of money. You can have training for your organization, boot camps, lots of ways of doing that. But let's talk about the other side of it, change from the bottom up. I personally think this is actually more important in AI. So first of all, you got to make it okay. This is probably happening already, but you want to officially say it's okay to experiment with this stuff, and we encourage it. And then you want to encourage it. You want to say, listen, we're going to provide you some training if that's helpful. And also we're going to create groups where, people who are already doing lots of cool AI stuff, we want to celebrate your experiments. So let's have like a weekly or a monthly brown bag lunch where, we have people just demo stuff they've been doing just to get excited and have a prize around it. Or maybe do a scaling up quarterly theme where we say, hey, we want to do 20 AI experiments in our company this quarter, and we're going to have a scoreboard for it, and we're going to show that people are learning this stuff, and we're going to demo it, and we're going to have a big party at the end of the quarter if we got to our 20 experiments. I mean, these are just ideas kind of tying in what you guys are practitioners of through Petra and scaling up with really elevating your people. And you will find some interesting folks in your organization that you might not have known that well if you're a mid or larger sized company doing interesting things. So bottom-up change is super, super important in the era of AI. Last thing I want to say before I open it up for Q&A is, the clock is ticking. The time is now. It is an urgent topic. You cannot say, you could say this, but you should not say, I'm too busy. I've got too much going on. I'll deal with AI next year. The train has left the station already, and if you haven't gotten on it, you've got to get the fastest horse you can find and try to catch that damn train. AI is getting faster, getting better. Your competitors are going to do this stuff, and you can make this a major advantage in your business if you jump on it and learn it now. Again, it doesn't mean you have to go and throw all caution to the wind and just implement any AI solution. Approach it with diligence, but learn it. Get started today and learn and learn and learn. And on that note, I'll leave this last slide up, what you can do next, and then I'll take all the Q&A. So, opportunities, learning opportunities, experimentation opportunities. I have this free book available. Again, some of it's not relevant to you guys. It's about associations, but a lot of it is. So that's a free resource. Feel free to distribute it around your organization. It's a downloadable PDF. The QR code is on the upper right corner of your screen. Again, it's a free resource that I hope is useful to you. I have a challenge for all of you, which is on the bottom right, start experimenting. I challenge every one of you on the call who has not yet done anything with AI, and if you have, to do a new thing, to try one new AI tool between now and tomorrow. So I don't care what it is. It could be Midjourney, it could be ChatGPT, it could be within Microsoft Copilot if you have access to it. Do something. Something more than hi. Some people tell me, oh, I've used ChatGPT. Yeah, I signed up and I just said, hello, my name is Bob. And ChatGPT responded. That's just total BS. That's a triviality. Actually, go try to do something. Take something you're doing, try to actually go do something with AI. Because when your brain starts actually doing this, that's when the wheels will start turning. Oh, wait, in my business, here's how I can apply it. Take action, even little bitty action. The other thing is ask all of your vendors and suppliers and business partners, what are they doing with AI? The more you have this conversation, the more you learn. If you're an EO or YPO, talk to your firm about it. In your own business, if you have suppliers, again, ask them what's their AI strategy. What are they finding good? What are they struggling with? I'm available. I'm a friend of Petra's. If I can be helpful in kind of guiding you guys places, if there's things that we do that can be helpful for you, my email is here in the upper left, amith@bluecypress.io. Our company does a lot of training and boot camps on AI. We do a whole bunch of different things that may be interesting. So if there's things we can do to help, that's great. But hopefully these resources and this content has been helpful. And with that, I've got about 18 minutes left before our time is up. So I want to let Mandy walk us through whatever questions have come in by now.
Amith, so helpful. So helpful. I will tell you that I have dabbled here and there, and I had some of the same security questions and things like that, mostly personal, not a ton work related. So guys, if you have questions, go ahead and pop them in. I wrote down a couple as we go. I'll ask you, I'll call it a personal question for myself first. What do you think is the best text summary tool? Because I see a lot of them out there, and I think personally I get overwhelmed with which one to go and where to start.
It depends on how big the text is that you're summarizing. If it's like a blog post or an article, then ChatGPT, but specifically GPT-4. So there's two versions of there's actually three versions of ChatGPT. Is the free one, which most people have tried. There's the $20 a month one, which is called Plus. That gives you access to GPT-4. Most people have only experienced the free one, which is GPT 3.5, which is significantly different. So GPT-4, the $20 a month one, well worth paying for. Also, you can make all of your conversations private so that it doesn't use your data to train itself in the future. So that's great for most use cases. If you have something really big, like the manuscript for my book is I think 55, 60,000 words. If I wanted to say, hey, here's a book, summarize this, there's something in an AI model called a context window, which is basically how big of it can you give it of the information that you're passing to it. GPT-4 right now is limited to a fairly small context window of about 8,000 words. So there's this other tool that's out there called Claude. If you go to Claude.ai, and Claude is provided by another software company called Anthropic, which is another major leader in the AI space. And Claude is what they call Claude 2. If you go to Claude.ai and sign up, I think it's free actually, and they might have a $20 a month plan too. That is a 100,000 word window. So you can literally take an entire book like mine and say, hey, summarize. In fact, I did that. So for our team, we took our book, right, that we wrote and we released it in June. We said, hey, now let's create 25 blog posts from it. So we said, hey, Claude, here's a book. Give me 30 blog posts out of this book. It did that. And we said, okay, now we're going to take those blog posts and write the outline for each of those blog posts. And then actually, we find GPT-4 to be a better writer than Claude. So we took Claude's summaries, then we went to GPT-4 and ChatGPT and said, hey, here's an outline for a blog. Write this for us, and took the summary from Claude of the whole book and the outline of the blog, and it just pumped out blog after blog. So sometimes the answer is you use a combination of the tools.
I like your examples because it helps me be creative on how to use it. So we have a couple different questions in here, and I want to make sure we get them all in. First one is from Sunny Clark. How do you get your data into the AI tool? For example, you want to know the books, PDFs, articles that you have read. What is the mechanism to feed that data into the AI engine?
So if I understand the question correctly, it's like my personal history of reading.
Yeah, we get our stuff. Like I would say Petra, Andy's written all these documents over years, and we have.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
How do I get
Everything
that in?
you've done in your business. So that's an effort. So that's a slightly more advanced example than just using this stuff as an individual. So in the example that I provided, we use a tool called BettyBot, which is one of our products. And there's many others that are out there. There's lots of bots that you can train on this. And so what BettyBot does, Betty is basically a tool that takes an unlimited amount of content and then is able to store that in a brain, basically, that then interacts with GPT-4 in a way that makes it possible for GPT to understand that entire mass amount of content. So if you go to sidecarglobal.com/chat, that's an example. I'll put it in the, I don't know if I have access to put it in here. Oh yeah, I can put it in here.
So people can go kind of learn about BettyBot, because in my mind, I'm thinking kind of the same thing. Right now, I have them in secure Dropbox, and I have some here, and I have them on our website. Like, how do I push them into something?
Yeah, so there's tools like BettyBot, and there will be many others. There are many others. There will be even more that are capable of saying, hey, here's my website. Here's all my PDFs. Here's all my other stuff. And you just feed all this stuff into the brain. And then you also create pipes to these different things. So it's not static. It's like every time my website is a new blog, it just automatically sucks it in. And then what these tools do is they constantly bring that content in, and they do something to it to basically make it possible for the AI to have a much bigger context, essentially. One thing I didn't really mention explicitly, but I talked about in that curve, is that this stuff is changing so fast. So this idea of long-term memory and much broader context, it's a solvable problem. In the next year, 2 years, it's going to become way easier to do this. So there's a lot of tooling around for it. There's ways to solve the problem now with tools like BettyBot, but ultimately, it's something that takes a little bit of work right now. It's not super hard, but it takes a couple weeks of effort with a tool like that and a little bit of money to get something like that up and running.
Okay, always keep in mind the security piece as well. Let's see.
That's a key reason to do that with a private tool rather than trying to use like ChatGPT or whatever, because that puts all of your content in the public.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, especially because I could see an employee saying, oh, well, let me be really efficient. Let me take all this information and put it into ChatGPT. I've heard about it. And then the company then opening themselves up for risk for putting all the client data in there. I hadn't thought about that until today.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just something you have to be aware of. And that's why it's important to have the conversation and have even some high level guidelines on what to do.
So next question is, do you have suggestions on the best financial AI tools to incorporate into the accounting department?
I don't have specific examples for that. It's kind of outside of where I spend my time, but I guarantee you that's an area that you can find a lot on. And there's such an opportunity around that. One of the businesses in our family is a virtual CFO service, and they are basically building that entire model around like, hey, let's be an AI first virtual CFO, virtual controller. And the whole thesis is around exactly that. So I don't know personally, though.
Okay. Are there tools that can validate a particular AI outpost that hasn't infringed copyright or other IP?
Awesome question. So the short answer is no. So it is not possible to determine provenance of the source of AI content, just like it's not possible to determine that if you wrote it. So there are lots of conversations about this, and there's actually like the fundamental models we're using. Did they actually infringe on copyrights, and how will that be solved? My belief is that the short answer is yes. Anthropic and OpenAI and all these other models absolutely infringed on copyrighted material, and they're going to solve that through licensing agreements. And we as end users of it, I don't think don't have to worry about it too much. But as far as like your concerns of saying, hey, we want to write an article, and then did it like pull a piece of content from somebody else's blog, and then you get a cease and desist letter. It's possible, but I don't think it's particularly likely. I would put it out there as being probably less likely, in my opinion, than a human writer unintentionally plagiarizing, because essentially the way these models work is they don't actually store the contents. This is a thing that people don't understand. Like GPT-4 was trained literally on almost the entire public internet, but it doesn't store all of that. It doesn't store it. It's kind of like your brain. So if you had a million lifetimes to live, Mandy, and you said, hey, I'm going to read every article that was ever written on the internet. That's how I'm going to spend my time. I'm going to spend a million lifetimes just reading everything. You'd be an unbelievably knowledgeable person, assuming you had decent retention of any of that. But you don't remember word for word, unless you had, that kind of memory, which is very rare. You don't really remember word for word. What you remember is the concepts, the summaries. You kind of distill it down in your brain. And that's how AI works as well. It's like a form of compression. And so then, therefore, the probability of you reciting, chapter and verse from another blog is very unlikely. Would you be able to cite a particular author if you actually remembered that it was from that? Yes, and that's actually how these tools work. Like BettyBot can say, oh yeah, and this idea came from this article, so you can provide appropriate citations. But sometimes it just doesn't know. That's unfortunately and fortunately, the way we've built AI is kind of it's like biomimicry. We've essentially built neural networks in the computer that work the way people's brains work.
Interesting. Katie had a very similar question, so I'll skip that. Eric's question is, we were about to start migrating our data on our servers, which is a traditional setup as a normal file structure, to Microsoft Office 365 SharePoint. Is that the right decision? Not terribly familiar with SharePoint, but doing online learning courses seems like a really great fit. Any thoughts would be appreciated.
I mean, the two big platforms for your online life are Google and Microsoft in terms of your Office experience for your files and for your Word, Word or Docs, Sheets or Excel, etc. I've used both. I think they're both excellent platforms. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. My company uses Microsoft, but that's just a choice we made based on a number of tools that we're using. But I think both platforms are extraordinary. They're both very reasonably priced, in my opinion. So I don't think you go wrong. SharePoint's great. So is Google Docs, Google Drive. They're both going to do essentially the same thing for you. And ultimately, you do, even though the AI is capable of understanding all your stuff, you still want to spend some time in the traditional way of like thinking about your folder hierarchies and permission sharing and all that stuff for your people. But just understand that like both Google and Microsoft are going to give you these unbelievable tools for, having their AI trained on your content to serve you.
I think that's something we've talked about at Petra with our members, is just making sure. I wrote down, shoot for the first draft, not perfection. I think that there could be, a side effect of this, quite frankly, could be laziness of, well, my AI will take care of that. That's just going to get all my information out of my current tool. It's going to pop it into SharePoint. I'll just set something that's just going to copy and paste. It's going to copy bad data, wrong data, outdated stuff. So you have to have a person, is what you said, like make sure you're not just making sure the AI can do everything for you.
You can totally take the lazy route with AI. Like, there's actually a thing right now where in Google Workspace, you can send your AI to attend a meeting for you, even today, instead of attending. So it's like the Andy bot that I was joking around about earlier. Yeah. Andy bot could attend Petra's Huddle instead of Andy himself, right? And he can, throw in the Andy remark every once in a while, just like he would in real life. And so, yes, that's possible. I think it's a really bad idea for a lot of reasons, but I think of it as a really smart assistant. It doesn't replace you, but it supplements you. Now, will AI eventually get to the point where it can totally replace you? It's better than you, maybe, but that doesn't really matter right now. What matters right now is it's a really smart assistant. Use it as such.
Next question: is there a list of different AI tools and what they do? So I'm thinking kind of like a catalog of, we have so many different members in so many different industries. So someone's going, where do I get started? ChatGPT is broad, but where else do we go from there?
I'll give you a couple resources now. I'd say that's an area that's like rapidly evolving. There's a couple influencers I think you could follow. One is a guy named Paul Raitzer. He runs a group called the Marketing AI Institute. So if you're interested in the marketing use case I started with, he has some of the best content on exactly that question. It's just marketingaiinstitute.com. And they actually have an annual conference with a version that you can watch. They just had it a couple months ago. It's called maicon.ai, maicon.ai. In disclosure, they're one of our investments here, but independent of that, they're just a fantastic content organization. And then the other thing that I'd say is go check out the Sidecar blog. There's some stuff on there that's really good. The other influencer I'd suggest is this guy named Ethan Mollick. He's a professor at, University of Pennsylvania, if I remember correctly, at Wharton. And he writes a lot. You can find Ethan Mollick on LinkedIn. You can find him. He has a blog called One Useful Thing. And he writes a lot about ChatGPT, but he writes about different tools. So I'd find some influencers you like to follow. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm posting stuff on all the time about different tools and things. If you're interested, I'm on LinkedIn actively. But find some people that experiment with this stuff, follow them, and engage in conversations.
I love that, because I think for myself personally, the examples even that you did today of type this in, and take your book, put it here, take your 500 really wordy email, and then say, give me 150. Like, those are things that I go, oh, that's an actionable item that I can go do today. So more of those examples I think are really helpful.
The other thing that AI is really good at, I didn't have time to really describe, is being an editor. So you might write a piece of content and say, hey, improve this article. I did say it in the context of I have a long-winded CEO email and I want to make it shorter. But you can also just say, hey, I'm about to post this to my blog. Please edit it. And it'll give you really good feedback. Like another thing that some marketers struggle with, what's the best subject line for this email? And it'll give you subject lines that might work well. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with it in all these different roles.
Love that. A follow-up question from Erica is, will Claude write in your writing style?
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
You just have to tell it what your writing style is. So when you prompt it, again, think of it as an assistant. If let's say I'm Mandy's assistant, Mandy doesn't know me. I just graduated from college. I've got an English degree. I'm very capable, but I have raw skills. Mandy hires me as her assistant, and she says, hey, Amith, write me a blog in my writing style. And I go, cool, what's your writing style? And you go, well, here's a couple articles I just wrote.
Yeah.
Clone my writing style. Then I can do it, right? And then the more you work with me, the better I get. Same thing with Claude. If you just say, write me an article on blog, you don't tell anything about you, it's just going to write you a generic article. If you say, write it in this style, here's a couple paragraphs of the way I write, it'll do a great job. Same thing with GPT-4. Both of these models are state of the art. They're really good at that. And it's going to keep getting better.
Very good. We have 4 more questions. Can you provide some specific examples of taxonomy? Are you thinking of things like product categorization?
Yes. Product categories are a great example. Say I have 1,000 SKUs in my product catalog and I want to be able to categorize them for easy customer search and things like that. And the problem is these things tend to be multidimensional. So it's not as simple as saying, here's my hierarchy of look at Amazon and there's these different product categories and subcategories and subcategories. Well, sometimes, my computer cable, does it fall under consumer electronics or does it fall under, cell phones, right? So being able to maintain a taxonomy like that is something that AI can do for you beautifully. If you're a user of something like Shopify, you're probably going to get that automatically, because Shopify is amazing in terms of the work they're doing in AI, around this and many other use cases. But that's exactly the kind of thing I was thinking about. The other thing, again, is if you do invest over time, not necessarily right now, but over time in some kind of AI chat agent for your customer, think about it as that's going to actually help the customer find what they're looking for. If you can remove friction from the buying experience, the engagement process, right, between your business and your customer, it makes it smoother for them. Friction is your enemy, and AI can help reduce it.
Love that. Some of this was a little bit answered earlier. Are there any AI companies that we should be watching in the AI industry?
Generically speaking, I'd say pay attention to the majors. So look at Microsoft, look at Google, look at, I hate Meta personally, because I think they're just terrible people, but that's just my personal opinion, but they're doing some really good work with AI. If you're interested in AI research, follow them. Jan LeCun, who runs their AI lab, is brilliant, and he's a great guy from what I can tell. So Meta has some really interesting stuff going on. I'd also follow Amazon. So all the majors, definitely take a look at them. In terms of smaller labs, OpenAI clearly is the industry leader in a lot of areas. Anthropic. Inflection AI is another one. It was founded by the other DeepMind co-founder, Mustafa Suleyman, brilliant guy. So those are some. But I would actually start off not by following those companies, but following some influencers like Paul Raitzer, Ethan Mollick, people like that, because they're kind of like aggregators of content. And I think that's probably a good place to start.
Love that. And we'll do notes on this and kind of a recap. So there's a lot of information. Don't worry, we'll get it all out to everybody. 2 more questions.
You can use AI to do that.
Our company is trying to develop usage guidelines as we are concerned about customer info, plagiarism, copyright. Do you guys have any guidelines that you can share?
So yes, people are developing guidelines for internal use, and yes, it's a good idea, but also keep in mind, you don't yet know what you're doing. So develop more of a theory of practice, meaning principles rather than rules. So you want to start off with something that's not so comprehensive as a policy statement as to basically prevent people from trying things out. So be careful with your guidelines, keep them brief. It's kind of like core values. They should apply, but they don't need to tell you exactly what to do. Think that way. As far as examples, I'll send you some links after the call of a couple examples we have. One of our companies, Symmetry.com, CIMATRI.com, they have some AI guidelines on their website, because that's what they do, is they help companies with their AI strategies. So
very good. We'll get those in the recap. All right, and our last question is, I haven't had any luck with finding a good marketing presentation creator AI tool. Have you?
The one I just showed you guys is called beautiful.ai. I don't have a ton of experience with it, but I did just use it for this presentation, and I had someone within the company help me actually build it, but it's really slick. So, but that being said, once again, Google and Microsoft are no slouches, and Google Slides and Microsoft PowerPoint both have generative AI capabilities coming to them. So rather than picking up and leaving what you're used to, take a look at what those companies are planning to build. And probably think about using some of that stuff too. But beautiful.ai is cool to check out. It you basically go in, you can give us some content and say, create a slide presentation based on this blog post, and we'll create a set of slides for you.
All right, team, we are right at 11 o'clock. So Amith, I'll let you go.
Okay.
You will get a recap of this for all the information. We'll do the slides, we'll have notes and screenshots and all of the tools. So Amith, I'll get that list from you and we'll put it in the recap. Be on the lookout for that to come out Monday from Petra. So that will come to everybody that attended. Feel free to share that with your team. If you enjoyed this, we do a webinar each month. I think next month we are doing one on, is your culture as good as you think it is? So come learn a little bit about culture. And then the next one is with Arnie on Better Book Club in December. So looking forward to having you guys for our next one's coming up. Amith, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
Everybody have a great day. See ya. Thank you.